What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Bartender Hideout. We made it. The top 10, we're going into double digits. We ticked that one off. Today we are going to be looking at probably one of the fan favorites, especially in summertime. So episode number 10 is going to be the Mojito. As you guys know, we are looking at the top 50 most popular cocktails according to the 2020 list of the Drinks International survey. Mojito is number 10 on this list, and I think with good reason. This is the one that gets drunk the most here during summertime probably, and I can see why as well, as it's really refreshing. At first, as usual, I'll be diving into the history a little bit. Then afterwards, I'll be showing you how to make this drink, and lastly, I'll tell you exactly what I feel of the Mojito and if you should try to make it at home and if it's worth it. Okay, so at first, let's dive into the history now. The history of the Mojito is actually a fascinating one. This might be the oldest cocktail in the world. There's been a lot of talking about which is actually the oldest cocktail in the world. It might be the Mojito, or at least a version of the Mojito. It was actually called the El Draque at that time, and it dates back all the way to 1586. So this is way before any of the other cocktails we've been looking at, and even the ones that we said might have been one of the oldest cocktails. This is most likely one of the oldest, if not the oldest cocktail. So with the Mojito, there's actually the predecessor, as I said, the El Draque, which is supposedly invented by Sir Francis Drake, which was an admiral on the British Navy ships, and he ended up making this cocktail. Again, it all comes down to what we had with, for example, the daiquiri. A lot of it was to prevent scurvy on board of the ships, of the naval ships, and this was actually from the time where they started figuring that out. Around this time also there was the recommendation that all the ships would bring enough limes and lemons on board to ration for all of their sailors, to make sure they didn't get sick. And once people started figuring this out, obviously they started mixing, because no one wants to drink straight lime juice or straight lemon juice. Sir Francis was one of those guys that ended up trying a lot of different stuff. In the end, back in the day, they ended up using rum a lot of the time. And with this El Draque, it wasn't any different. He ended up using aguardiente de cana. It was basically just like a gathering name for a lot of the spirits that were floating around at that time. So this was one of those spirits which was made mainly with sugar. So if you guys know a little bit about rum, rum is actually made with sugar as well, mainly. So in that way, we can kind of date it back as being one of the first mojitos. He used mint, he used limes, and he only didn't use sparkling water. So it's kind of what we do now is more of a watered down version of the El Draque. So there's another origin story. So there's this place in Havana called Borreguita del Medio, which said to be the discoverer of the Mojito, or at least one of the early makers of the Mojito. They have this plaque on the wall as well, signed by Ernest Hemingway, who apparently was really big into cocktails, because I've been talking about some stories already in the first couple of episodes with him as well. And he kind of discovered it in that place as well. Regarding the name Mojito, it might come from the Spanish word mojadito, which means little wetness, or kind of loosely translated translates to little wetness, which kind of would make sense, because I don't have to explain that one, I think. Or it comes from the word mojo, which is more of a word that the African slaves at that time in that area would use, which would mean a little spell. I think the first one actually would make more sense to me, but obviously I wasn't around in that time, so I wouldn't have a clue of what's going on there. Besides that, the first appearance of the actual name Mojito was in 1931, 1932. That's when it got put on a menu at Sloppy Joe's bar, and this is probably the first one where it's actually called the Mojito. I think overall with the Mojito, it just has a really interesting history. Especially the fact that it's such an old cocktail, that they were drinking this back in the 1500s and that we're still drinking it now. Obviously the reason why we're drinking it is completely different than what they needed to drink it back then. But I think that just makes it interesting that stuff from history translates all the way to now, and people don't even realize it. I didn't even realize it before I did research on this one. That makes this job really fun because you just end up learning new stuff every day. Something I don't have to learn is how to make this mojito. So let's dive into making this mojito. As you can see, I already have a couple of ingredients here just to make everything a little bit quicker, and I don't want to waste too much of your guys' precious time because I know that you don't want to be here any longer than you have to be. So with the mojito, we are gonna start off with using some fresh limes. This is actually one of those cocktails you can really easily make at home because you only need a few ingredients that are not in a lot of household cabinets already anyway. One of them is obviously lime. I think most people won't have like fresh limes laying around at home. The other one is mint. So most people wouldn't have too much mint at home, but apart from that, the rest might be already in your kitchen cabinet somewhere. We are going to be using fresh mint. So let's pick some of that off. Here we go. Just between 8 and 12 leaves, somewhere around that is always like a good medium. If you wanted more minty, you can always do that. I'm just gonna give it a little slap just to make sure you wake up that mint. Gives a little bit of extra aroma. What you can do if you have some mint at home and you want to see, like, I'm not talking absolute shit right now, you can always smell a little piece of mint, slap it on your hand a couple of times, and then smell it again, and you will really see that this just giving it a little tap, or actually kind of like waking up the mint a little bit, really makes a big difference, and you can smell it in the end in your drink as well, hopefully. Yeah, so we have our lime in here, we have our mint in here, then I'm gonna have some sugarcane sugar, and we're gonna be using 2 bar spoons of that. The beauty is you can basically use any sugar you have, so like just normal sugar you would have in your cabinet, but this one just tends to have a lot more flavor to it, so it just has those caramel kind of sweetened caramel kind of tones to it that really help bringing your mojito just to the next level. Yeah, and when we're talking about bringing a mojito to a next level, you'll see in most cases people will be using a normal mojito or the normal Bacardi, which is not a mistake at all. Like this is perfectly fine for a mojito. I think this is one of those things that gets used a lot, just a nice and white rum. As you can see, we're in a cocktail bar. We like to be a little bit more special, so I kind of took the recipe from there. So I end up using Bacardi 8, which just in the end has a lot more flavor to it as well, since it's been aged on barrels. So it took over a little bit more from the caramelly kind of flavors that you would normally get from barrel aging, which makes this mojito just taste a little bit better. So that's why I'm going to be using 2 ounces. Obviously you could use your normal white rum as well and use 2 ounces of that, then you're still good to go. So once we have most of our ingredients in here, I'm just going to be muddling it all together. Just make sure that once you muddle this drink, you don't want to be muddling it too much, since that might actually overdo it with the mint and the lime, and the lime might get bitter because it has the rind on it. It just makes it, once you crush that too much, it turns out bitter as well. Same with the mint, it might turn bitter if you like really pulverize it too much. So that's really like a no-go. Okay, now we've got all of these ingredients together. It's time to start icing our drink. So with the muddling, it just kind of helps getting out some extra flavors, especially from the lime. You want to have some lime juice in there to just counteract that bitterness a little bit. And apart from that, we are going to be adding crushed ice, since that's just going to help with the dilution as well, so it doesn't stay super strong from the beginning. And I'd like to always have a little napkin on top, because we don't want to be touching the glass while we're making these drinks for the other guests. So give it a good little stir to start off with, and then add our soda water or sparkling water. Either one is fine. I think it's mainly the name of what people call it in the end anyway. To me, it's all pretty much the same. Then again, we top up with sparkling water and give it another good stir, just so we nicely mix up all that sugar, all the lime, all the mint. Actually, I think a good mojito normally is kind of like cloudy in a way. What we've got here now. A lot of times you see mojitos come to the table of like guests and once I go to other places that are just, everything is stuck on the bottom, so it's nice and clear, which it normally really shouldn't be, because you don't want to have the first sip, have all your ingredients down, and that's it, and then you have sparkling water. So that's why, to make sure, we always do a little bit of stirring. And yeah, and I think apart from that, we're just gonna have to garnish this one, and that's it, nice and easy. Nice bit of sprig of mint. And there we go, guys. There you go, that's your mojito. Okay, and then for the tasting, let's try this one. Yeah, as you might be able to see on the day that this was uploaded, we're in the middle of the winter right now. So this is normally not a cocktail I would be making a lot or would be ordering a lot. But I think, yes, this is better in summertime, but still it's a good cocktail. I think the sugar comes through quite nicely. That's why you shouldn't be overdoing it too much on the sugar. You can always add more sugar if people want it a little bit more sweet, but obviously you can't take out sugar. So just make sure that you keep that one in mind. But apart from that, just the rum makes it really refreshing, and it just gives those little caramel tones in the back. So it just gives a little bit of a different flavor sensation than what your normal mojito would be. Yeah, and apart from that, I think the mojito is just a great cocktail overall. I think this is something I've been saying in pretty much every episode by now, but it's just because it's good. They're just, in general, they're just all good cocktails, and that's why they are in the top 10. And I'm sure I'm going to be saying it for another bunch of cocktails, so bear with me. I would recommend making this in the summer days, but if you really can't wait and want to have a mojito right now, yeah, go for it. If you're interested in what our next video is going to be, make sure to check the list in the description. And apart from that, thank you guys for being here. Make sure to drop a comment if you like our videos, if you have anything to say about what we should change, what we do better maybe. And apart from that, make sure to like and subscribe if you think that we should keep going on and want to see a video next week. Yeah, but for now, I guess I'll see you guys next week. See ya.